morning, everyone, and welcome to our second virtual annual meeting of the Chicago Collections Consortium. Sorry, I had to pause and say this is the second time we've done this. I'm Ellen Keith. I'm the Director of Research and Access and Chief Librarian at the Chicago History Museum, a founding and governing member of the consortium, and I'm our current board chair. And I'm so happy to welcome you all today as we talk about what we've done this year and look to the year ahead, and most importantly, as we share Vashon Jordan's story. I'm so thrilled to have him here. I have to hold up my copy of his book. I am a huge fan, so this is a real get for us. So we are recording today's lecture, and it will be available on our website. We're going to be able to take chat to questions, and I will go ahead and start the welcome. Just a brief look at our agenda. We've got Vashon. We'll go through some, after his presentation, we'll go through some things, our acknowledgement of our members, et cetera, and then adjourn. It's going to be a kind of a fast-paced morning, so stick with us. And starting with Vashon, we've got a wonderful recording that he did with ABC7 to introduce you to his work. And after that, I will shut up and let Vashon talk, but I'm going to start this video.
Nobody builds 5G like Verizon builds 5G, because we're the engineers who built the most reliable network in America. Thousands of smarter towers with the 5G coverage you need, broader spectrum for faster 5G speeds, next generation servers with superior network reliability. Because the more you do with 5G, the more your network matters. It's us pushing us. It's Verizon versus Verizon. And who wins? You.
Over the summer of 2020, I captured over 17,000 images. Everyone has something they can contribute. For me, it was photography. I wanted to go out and use my gifts to make sure that I put a stamp on history and mark this period of time. The year of 2020 was one like no other. I photographed looting, but I also photographed positive events. I photographed Trump rallies, police rallies, everything that was going on. I made sure I gave them equal coverage, and I showed everyone. There are moments out here where I capture things that no news cameras capture. Black history and the Black experience is magical, and I wanted to make sure that that was held longer than a news cycle. I believe that no one can tell your story better than you can. So as a Black man covering these uprisings, these events that are happening to Black people, I'm able to convey this in a way that many others can't, because I lived this experience, I know it innately. I captured over 17,000 images, and I put them together in a self-published book entitled Chicago Protests, The Joyful Revolution. With the book, people are able to see these images in a tangible form. Having items in the tangible form allows you to realize that this is real. I noticed that for people, it's hard to believe a Black story if you can't physically see it on paper. I wanted to make sure that I'm coming out here and I'm showing it to you. As we drove around the city, we came across this location and it struck me. Coming back here today, it looks very similar to how it looked when I first photographed it. But for this to sit here, it brings down a morale of the neighborhood. To drive by and see this store burned down reminds you of that time. And it's traumatic, and it's one that shows that there is no investment in this community. So to see it here is really disheartening. I wanted to make sure that we had moments where people are happy, smiling, dancing, and love, because that is revolutionary as well. I took one of my favorite photos here of protesters doing a swag surf right here on this intersection. But I just remember that day of being here and that energy, that swag surf. I was getting photos and video at the same time. I was swag surfing a little bit too, and it was an all-around great moment. On June 6th, I covered the Chicago March of Justice. There were 38,000 people as far as the eye can see, still in the streets, so many different races, background, classes, creeds, and genders coming together to proclaim that Black Lives Matter and stand up for something. To see a photo of a Black man showing emotions and showing feelings is something that you don't see often. And I felt that that was one of the things that we really need to blast out. We need to show that Black men do have feelings and emotions too. Black people are human. So I wanted to put our humanity back by showing him that emotional embrace. In the future, I want young Black boys and girls to see that people who came before them fought for them to be where they are today. For me, covering processes opened my eyes to the work that we need to do to make a better tomorrow and succeed. We have to understand that it's going to take all of us to save us, and we have to come together in order to move forward as a nation.
Okay, Vashon.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me. I'm still getting used to hearing my own voice on that video, even though I've seen it so many times, but very excited to be here today and just really talk about some of the work that I've done over the last year and a half and where it's going today. So if you look at the ending of that video that we just saw, one of the points that I ended off on was how I want to make sure that young people are able to look back on the future and see the folks of today and what we did, what we worked on, and be able to carry that torch and carry that mission, because our entire goal and aspect in life is to leave the world a little better than how we found it. And we're coming here on this earth, but we are taking and picking up that torch and we're carrying that across and we're running it. So what you all are doing as these institutions who are dedicated to preserving the history of Chicago and showcasing it is you're showing us where we started, you're showing us where we're going and how far we need to go to get to what we're trying to achieve. So the image that I wanted to start off on was, right now I have 18 photos on display at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. And this is the image that was captured by the museum photographer of a young girl who was looking at one of the photos that I shot of the We Walk for Her March. And a lot of the work that I've covered has been through social media. And of course, she's not using social media. So there's definitely that barrier where she may not see exactly what it is that I'm posting on my social media coverage, no matter how many likes or retweets it gets. So having it in that museum and in that physical, tangible form allows her to see that and showcase that. And I thought that this image really just represented so much of what I thought about, because of the fact that there's so many images around her. You can see her father and her other sister are looking at different photos, but she's just fixed on that one shot. And even when I went to visit the museum, I saw a very similar scene. So just showcasing just how important this work is, but also just getting it out there. And what we're going to see in some of the next slides is some of the photos that I captured over the summer of 2020 with a lot of the civil rights and uprisings that took place in Chicago, where I covered over 37 demonstrations in 3 months, resulting in over 17,000 images. And I compiled those images together in a book that Ellen held up for you all earlier, entitled Chicago Protest, A Joyful Revolution. And the goal of that was just to take what I saw over the summer and actually get that down to physical form where we can take that and share it across and be able to pass that down. Because with social media, a lot of things get lost, those news cycle changes, but you can't take away those physical forms. So before I go into a little bit of my background, I just want to give a few facts and stats about the book. So the book's released on October 16th, 2020. It's available for purchase on Amazon, where I self-published it there. And right now it is in 16 Chicago public libraries. I have photos in the Elmhurst Art Museum representing fair housing. I have images on display in the Museum of Science and Industry. And I also have donated the book to, which Ellen is from, the Chicago History Museum, their Collections and Research Center. And right now we're actually working on the donation, where I donated all 117 images from the book, high quality, full scale images, to the collection, where I, upon completion of that donation, I'll become the first Chicago-born photographer to have their own photo collection in the museum, and the 5th overall in the museum's history. In addition to that, I've done just a number of speaking engagements to different classes and schools and organizations, just to continue this conversation and keep the flame going with a lot that we saw last year. So I want to just take it back and just kind of give you an introduction to myself and how I think and the way that I approach photography. One of my earliest memories was using disposable cameras back in elementary school. And if you think about disposable cameras, there are 2 things that ring true. Number one, you can't see your shot right after you take it. You wind it up, you take the picture, and you go to Walgreens, wait a few days, and you just cross your fingers. I hope you got something good. And number two, you have a very limited number of shots. So that was my grounding in media and media making and photo before I picked up a cell phone or DSLR where you can snap 1,000 pics and choose the best one. I have to think about what the moment was. So if I'm going off to summer camp or a field trip and I have an entire day with 30 shots and I want a photo of my friend, you have 1 or 2 shots and that's all you're getting out of me. So I have to think about what's the best emotion, what's the best expression, what's the best place to have you, when should I take that shot, and really find that decisive moment, which is one of the key words in photography, of showcasing and putting that out there. Because even when making the book, I may cover a protest and use 2 to 3 images to reflect everything that goes on. So from there, I started to move up. And when I actually saw my first DSLR, I just fell in love with it instantly. But I realized that all that work in the ground level was laid out before me because I was working on that for so long. But it just took me here, realizing what I saw and what I needed. And I'm born and raised here in Chicago. So one of my best things to do is just go out and cover the city. And in a normal pre-pandemic year, one of my favorite items at the end of the year is I would volunteer and cover all of the parades that go on in the city, and even like our football classic and Chicago Elite basketball classic, just a lot. And of course, protests make up the fabric of Chicago. So that was one of the things that I covered. But in 2020, they were way more consistent and something we hadn't seen in decades. So I really felt that need to cover that and showcase that. But May 30th was the very first protest that I covered. Went out there, over 20,000 people, took down to the Loop. And then it drew a lot of attention because that was one of the first instances of looting that took place over that evening. And the photo that you see here is actually some shots from May 30th. And I went out and covered that when I thought it would be just a one and done protest, but I noticed that this felt different. So the next week, there were 38,000 people that came out and did the Chicago March of Justice from Union Park to Seward Park. And I realized that this was very consistent. As I started to go more and more and cover it, and I felt like, for me, I feel comfortable with the camera, and that feels like home for me. So I wanted to go and participate and also contribute photography. But I noticed that when I was in the Loop for the beginning protest, there were a ton of media outlets that were there to cover it, large to small. But when I went into the communities for some of the smaller events, there wasn't a morsel of that coverage. So I realized that all of these events are happening in Chicago. All of these people are standing up and taking a stand and trying to fight for a better tomorrow in different ways, but it's just like the delivery method is what decides if you have coverage. So what I wanted to stand on in my coverage was everyone deserves to be covered. Everyone deserves to be represented. Everyone deserves to be covered. You don't have to go down and fight with the police. You don't have to go down into the Loop in order to deserve that coverage. Because I think so long, especially Black people, we have been fighting to have our stories told. We've been fighting to have our stories collected, but we make up the fabric of the same country that we built. And it's important for us to be showcased and documented so that the kids of the future can see us in different avenues and different aspects, and just the pain and trauma that comes along with being an African American in this country, but also know that we have the ability to live, laugh, and be able to enjoy each other's company. Because when you see so many traumatic images of Black people, that decreases the morale of us today when we see our ancestors in bondage and we're being told that they never even had a moment of peace, they never had something to themselves. And nowadays we're starting to learn more of those stories. But when I was doing like the book tour, and of course we crossed through February, and I was thinking about Black History Month and a lot of the Black leaders that we have in our country. And one of the through lines that I noticed was every leader that we know of, at least, there's a photo of them or there's a video of them. And we look at Dr. King and there's so many images of him. There's so many, we can hear him speak and we can actually feel his energy, but there's so many people that did a lot of work where there isn't a record of them, there isn't a photo, there isn't a video. So we almost lose sight of them because we feel that if we can't actually see or hear them, then they don't exist. And Black people have been dealing with erasure for so long that I wanted to make sure that I was being forward thinking in that aspect of, we are going to be someone's ancestors. We have to record the history of today so that we can showcase it tomorrow, because what we saw in the summer of last year will never happen again. Will there be more protests? Of course, but those people, that reason, that feeling, that political climate will never happen exactly how it was. So if you didn't get out there and document and cover that, then all of that will be lost. So there's so much happening in the city, but if we don't see it or we don't showcase it, then they can get lost, and that really helps to craft the narrative of Chicago that so many people talk about. But we have to make sure that if we're given the full picture, and that has been the basis of my work, not skewing the story, not presenting a certain narrative, but just giving you all aspects and all pieces and allowing you to develop your own opinion. So when I talk to people about my work of 2020 and I ask them, what do they think about the protests? What went on and what happened? A lot of it is negative. A lot of it's looting. Well, if you just do a little bit of math, in the book, there are 37 different demonstrations. 2 of them are looting. If you take 2 versus 35 peaceful demonstrations, then you start to see, okay, maybe it's not so fair that those 2 are dominating the entire cycle. So all the images that you're seeing right now, those are actual images. None of this is staged, all this is candid, but this is the part that you didn't see. And it happened, but as people who are dedicated to preserving and showcasing the history of Chicago, it is our duty to showcase these moments and get out here and lift up the voices of these people to show everyone around what's going on. So my proudest moment from last year, it wasn't the book, it wasn't the museum. My proudest moments, the ones that will always stick with me, was I was at a protest and a young girl came up to me, maybe even like late teens, and she asked was I Vashon, and she told me she followed my work, and she said that her parents didn't want her going to the protest because they thought they were dangerous and violent because of what they saw on TV. And she showed them my coverage, and that changed their minds and opened their hearts, and they went from discouraging her to go to the protest to encouraging her to go to the protest. And there were other instances where I would go out and I would cover actions on social media, and people, if they were in the area, they will come to that actual location because they see me there live and they saw my coverage, and that made them want to come in. So this is just the work I'm doing as an individual. And if we're showcasing these real life images of what's going on here in the city and with our people, that will get more folks involved. That will get more folks coming out and wanting to see what's going on and have those conversations and dialogue, because we have to see ourselves as people first and look at that human level. And then we see, where do we differ at? Is it our political views or is our occupations? Where does that difference happen at? But we're all people and Americans living in this country. And growing up in this age of social media, I think that a lot of our institutions, because I know there are a lot of people here from libraries or museums or just physical locations, social media is almost diminishing that because we're so used to getting news in bite-sized form, or we're scrolling through something, or we may see an image like this one, but then a phone call comes in or a notification drops down, or you exit one app to the other. We're not necessarily sitting with them anymore. And that's why it's so important for us to have these showcases and these collections and these exhibitions for people to be able to come free of distractions. Hopefully they have their phones in their pocket and just sit with these images and these moments and try to feel that energy that was captured in that frame, because we need that. We need more items on paper. We need more things printed. We need more books here and people coming to see. As I've done some speeches over the last year, I've saw some different initiatives that really stuck with me and I thought were really great to share. I spoke to a course at Northwestern, and they are working on having students preserve their history. So it's an audio oral history class where the students are doing interviews with students and communities, and they're writing stories, and all of those stories will be preserved in the school's library. So that's something that I think schools and institutions can think about, doing more time capsules, doing more of taking pieces from students that they're creating and having that saved in the library, having those materials there for people to go back and look back on. Even when it comes to our museums and institutions, giving space for the people to tell their own stories. One of the easiest ways for a story to get lost is because someone else is telling that story. I have my story, then I tell it to you, and you have to put that through your lens and reframe it and present that to other people. But we want to see, how can we cut out that middleman and allow people to tell their own stories? So what I'm showing to you is a testament of someone who is from Chicago, covered Chicago, and went out and put these materials together as an independent photographer. And this is what you get out of it. So if we can expand these opportunities and resources to other people, that's how we're able to get this ball rolling and get more stories. Because even with myself, I have to admit, what I'm showing to you is my perspective. I wasn't able to make it to every single protest of last year. I wasn't able to photograph or talk to every single person who attended a demonstration. So there's so many additional stories and perspectives and viewpoints that could still come out of 2020 And all of that goes to just shape and frame everything that went on, because we're such a multifaceted city with different ideologies and different viewpoints and perspectives. And all of those are important to cover. So as you're going to see, as we continue to go through some of the images, is this image right here from a Blue Lives Matter rally. It wasn't me going out and saying I'm only going to cover a certain aspect, but I was still able to go and cover Trump rallies. I was able to cover this Blue Lives Matter support law enforcement rally, because I felt that in order for me to do this job correctly, I needed to give everyone a chance to be heard in that voice and showcase what they were saying, because there's always those opposing sides, and sometimes the opposing side is right and wrong. So for me, I think that a lot of the work that still needs to happen is more people feeling empowered to tell their own stories, connecting with individuals to lift their stories up on a broader level. Even for the History Museum, I am going to be working with a program they have where they're training young photographers to go out and document their own communities and tell their stories. So these are programs where if we have the resources, let's do it. Let's dedicate a space in your library, or let's dedicate a space in your museum for community pieces and community artwork for folks to come and have these free exhibitions and showcases. Because now the 18 Photos in Museum of Science and Industry, which right now is very popular because of their marble exhibition. So when people go from all across the world, come to Chicago, come to our museum, the first thing that they're greeted with are images of real Chicagoans with real issues and real stories, and seeing what's happening, because we're not invisible anymore. And we're coming out to the forefront, and we're demanding this change in the way that we work as a society and as a country, to make sure that we're hearing those voices and being able to make this world more equitable, because we all want to see a better tomorrow. And in the last 6 minutes that I have here, I want to make sure that there's an opportunity to get to a Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, you are more than welcome to drop those in. I guess, Ellen, are they going to put that in the chat, or is there a different area for them to put those in?
Chat.
Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat, and we can take care of those in some of the last few minutes that I am here. But other than that, just some more things about what I'm doing is, right now I have a photography internship with the Chicago Tribune, where I'll be serving as a general assignment photographer for the summer. Just finished my second week. Actually, today is the start of my third week at the Tribune. So I'm doing a lot of work with there, going around the city, covering that, getting that in the physical newspapers in tangible forms. Recently graduated from Columbia College Chicago with a degree in television. And I just did 2 years at Columbia. I received my associate's degree from Kennedy King College in Inglewood, which is actually where this photo was shot right here. And that's one of my favorite just actions from last year. That was an Envision Inglewood event, where that particular corner was deemed as a crime hotspot, and there was a lot of businesses that would come and go from that storefront. So the residents decided to come together and fill the potholes, paint murals on the boarded up sides, build shelves around the building to allow for resources that can be put there for anyone to come and take what they need, and have that as an available option for community members to come and get things for free, and really just take back their community and showcase that. But that was another one of those moments where we didn't see much of what was going on the news, because these things just weren't covered, because of just with news being a business and the ideas of those news cycles, a lot of that can get lost. So,
Vashon, I'm going to interrupt you for a moment, because I have received a very helpful text letting me know that chat is disabled.
oh, all right.
I'm so sorry. I will ask Jeannie behind the scenes if she is able to read. I'm so sorry, because I know we would have a ton of comments coming in chat. I was a little surprised it worked.
Someone has a question, so hopefully we can figure that out.
Right. I'm so sorry. This is, a year in Zoom, and it's still a lot to figure out.
Shout out to whoever sent that text. We appreciate
Exactly.
the thoroughness on this. So the slide that you're going to see after we go through the images is just my contact information. So that's another avenue where, if we can't get to your questions or comments today, feel free to reach out to me. So we have my Instagram and Twitter account, which is at Vashon_photo. Now I know that I'm able to type in the chat, so I'll have that there. So that's my Instagram and Twitter handle, at Vashon_photo. And another direct contact will be my email address, which is, I'll also put that in the chat, vj@VashonJordanJr.com. but you can go and look at the last slide and get a copy of that just to get those themselves. Do they have the chat now, or are we still?
We're still working on it. I'm still getting messages that it's disabled, and I am so sorry. But
all right, well, I'm not sure if we'll have that, but I think just overall, really excited to talk to this group because I do a lot of speaking with people who I'm trying to push them to use their voices and use their crafts to document their stories and their histories. But to know that a group is coming together who has that mission in their own rights, and some of you are not even in Chicago, but in the Chicagoland area of preserving those stories is definitely something that's helpful that we need to do. And I really hope to see more independent photographers. And when I say independent, because you've heard me say that a few times, what I mean by that is I wasn't on assignment for anyone. I wasn't there as someone who was being paid to be there, who was being asked to be there. Just me going out with my camera, having ownership of all of the images that you see here, and just taking that stand to do what I wanted to do with that. And there are a lot of people out here who are community-based journalists and photographers, and they do videos and photos and graphics, who are coming together to do that. Of course, I'm sure everyone heard about that image right there of the Dreadhead Cowboy and the Dan Ryan Expressway, September 21st, 2020. And that's one of the things I like to bring up a lot, because he had 2 marches, so I'm sure that was international news. Everyone here probably heard about this, but there were 2 marches that he held, one in Inglewood and one in Woodlawn. The exact same mission, the exact same message, the exact same purpose. He was on his horse. There's actually more horses out on the streets, and he had youth dance teams that were with him dancing, and they finished off with free horseback rides, food, games, dance competitions. But as I mentioned, there were 2. The first one received no news coverage at all. And the second one, there was 1 news outlet out of the entire city, 1 news outlet that came out to cover it. So when he went on the Dan Ryan Expressway, he felt comfortable enough to tell me about it in advance when no news outlets received that, because of that trust that we built up from me coming to cover him in those earlier instances. And we covered this, and this received so much attention, a lot because of the horse was injured. But I think that just goes back to the saying of, he had the same mission and message in Inglewood and Woodlawn, but it didn't get covered because of delivery. So making sure that we're out here covering these things, large or small, and like I said earlier, there are people doing it. I'm not asking you all to develop a media team and go out and be a news outlet that's sending photographers out to cover it. But the ask here is, look for people who are doing that work and connect with them and reach out to them and allow them to do this, because I mentioned some of the museums I'm a part of, but just to really make sure that we circle this and close that gap, for the Museum of Science and Industry, I reached out to them. They had never heard of me. I reached out to them for that opportunity, and it worked out. Same thing with the Elmhurst Art Museum. I reached out to them, and even at the Chicago History Museum, the initial contact was regarding a potential exhibition, but I proposed the idea of, can I donate a book to the museum? Can I donate the images to the museum? So a lot of these are just make sure that we're bridging those gaps and allowing that. But I know we've reached time.
I do have one question by text. Okay. Sorry. Jeannie has said that chat is showing it should be working. I am so sorry for this, but an intrepid person got through by text. So for Vashon, how do we help connect the visual engagement to deeper knowledge and reflection?
I think that it's almost like the Trojan horse idea, right? Where people can come because of the imagery. And then there can be showcases and lectures that happen around that, because there can be a case study done on every single image that I have. So it's like showing that as a reflection of what's the backstory of this, what's going on around that, because those visuals, same with a picture book, the story is there, but the pictures help to tell that. So if we can find those imagery, because everyone learns differently. We know this, right? Some people learn by listening. Some people learn by seeing it. Some people just learn by feeling something. So I think that the imagery is just another way to connect with a diverse group of learners, because you can definitely put a lecture together, or you can put written text together, but that really goes for the people who learn that way, who like to read and take in the information, who are already probably reading books, But there are other people, like the young girl that you saw at the beginning of the slide, looking at that image, for her, she's able to connect with those visual portions. So I think that having these exhibitions and doing work around it, so that's the same thing that I'm doing with the History Museum's photography program, where my book is in the collections, but now I'm going to go back to the museum and have that book and talk to students who are already in the museum. So having that program available. So when the exhibition comes up with the History Museum, one of the things we may work on is how can I do some sessions where maybe I come down to the museum for a day and hang out and allow folks to ask me questions about it. But the book is another thing too for me personally, where every photo has a caption, usually the date, the neighborhood, the name of the demonstration, the name of the person in the photo. So it's not just pictures and nothing else, but it gives you all of that background and context where you don't, I wish I can come with all the books, right, just to answer everyone's questions, but I can't. But the book can definitely stand alone on itself. And that was the same thing with the Museum of Science Industry. I reached out to them, but the curator actually purchased the book first and looked at the book, and that led them to reaching out to me to give an opportunity. So that's there, and I'll put the link in the chat. So I just encourage you to use that as, I guess, a blueprint for you all, just to see some of the ideas of what I'm talking about and what can be done for that. And then after you see that, I think that can help even further bridge that gap of what can be done with individuals and showing their communities and just everything that's going on, because there are 37 that's actually in the book. Only got to talk about a few of them here.
I'll share my colleague, Charles Bethay, who initially met with Vashon, told me that when we were getting Vashon's donation, he said, "You will love him. He has great metadata."
Yes, yes, yeah, all of that comes. I even went through when I was putting the book together and I wrote down the exact intersection that each photo was shot at. So that's not in the book, but all of that information is available for people because, and that's another thing too that I've noticed and why I wanted to share my backstory, because we can go out and we can take the pretty pictures, but as professionals, you all know that you still have to know the back, like I can take the picture, but I still have to know how to archive those images and how to make sure my camera's recording metadata and recording location information and storing and archiving those so they can be pulled up quickly. So there's a lot of background work for that, which we have to train the next generation from that. Are we doing questions by text? I don't know. I don't want to ruin the entire program here.
I know not everyone has my, but we've got to thank you, Vashon. So I'm so sorry about the chat. My apologies to everyone out there, because, you know, if you get a chance to talk with Vashon, he came in to donate his book on a very dreary January day, like the week after the insurrection. And I was, you know, so down in the dumps, and meeting him, who I'd been following on social media, it was like the highlight of my week and practically month. I mean, so, you know, I'm thrilled you could join us today, and I'm so excited for your work with the Tribune. He hasn't said it, but his very first week, he was on the front page of the Tribune. So.
Yeah, shot that photo. So what I can tell, I see some of the Twitter follows coming in. I don't plan on leaving Chicago anytime soon. So I'm around. I'm available. Thank you all so much. I'll stick around here, and I appreciate the opportunity once again.
Thanks, Vashon. There's always going to be a technical glitch. We will move ahead with the rest of our program. Okay, so thanking our governing members, and thank you again, Vashon, and I really encourage you to tweet at him, to follow him. I mean, his pictures are just amazing and makes us remember why we love our city, which is so very complicated. So in terms of the rest of our annual meeting, we just want to thank our governing members. I want to give a call out to UIC, who supports our portal manager halftime, Kate Flynn. She's halftime with UIC, halftime with us as our portal manager, and DePaul University, who provides housing to Jeannie Long, our executive director. They have an office and take care of everything like that through her. We also have a great website administrator, John Zaplicki, and he has been so wonderful in helping throughout the year. As you know, things come up like this, like chat not working, and John has been a huge help. Thank you to all of our members. We are so thrilled to have really grown in membership this year. it's just been an amazing thing through this very challenging year. And you can see the diversity of our members. I just think it's a great range of members who all have something to contribute about Chicago and want to do it by joining with us. We're also very thankful for our corporate partners. We added Union League Club of Chicago just this year, as well as the Cubs, and Henry Crown and Company Archives was an early corporate member. New members, a great array: Museum of Broadcast Communications, Chicago Film Archive, Latvian Folk Art Museum, Northern Illinois, Bronzeville Historical Society, National Cambodian Heritage Museum, and the Ukrainian National Museum, as well as Arlington Heights Memorial Library. We could not be where we were without our generous supporters. We've got the Mellon Foundation, an early supporter, Donnelly, Driehaus, MacArthur, Illinois Humanities, Illinois Arts Council, the Terra Foundation, and we are really happy to have Chicago Department of Cultural Affairs, DCASE, supporting us this year, as well as an individual anonymous donor. So thank you. This has been a challenging year. We know funders have been fielding a lot of requests, and we are so grateful for the continued support from these funders. Recognitions. We're thanking our FY 2021 Board of Directors, a wonderful group. You can see their names there. Our committee chairs. This is all, we have Jeannie and Kate. We have one full-time person and one half-time person, and then the work of many dedicated member institutions who have volunteered their time. So these are the people who keep us humming. We're having some chairs and board members rotate off. So we really want to give a huge thank you to Charles Blair, who has been co-chair of Discovery Systems just for ages, before there was even a portal. So thank you, Charles. We've got some board transitions: Brenda Johnson, University of Chicago; Doug Litz, Art Institute of Chicago; and Sarah Pritchard, Northwestern University, past board chair. Thank you all for your service. We just want to take a moment. We know that this has been a very challenging year. We've lost colleagues, we've lost friends. So we just want to acknowledge that. We hope we don't have another year like this. And now we are moving on to the election of directors. So here is our slate of proposed directors. We have Elizabeth Long, from University of Chicago; Esteban Montano, who has just moved over to Dominican University; Marianne Ryan, Loyola University; and Charla Wilson, Northwestern University. So in terms of my notes, going back to the slate of the board, we will take this time for elections. Let's see if I can see this chat. Kate is sending, okay, Kate will be sending your elections via email rather than chat. We've done this in chat in previous years, but we'll do that by email this year. So thank you all for pivoting. So let's talk about our year in review. The partnerships that we've had have been incredible. And you can see everyone we've been able to partner with. And again, it speaks also to the diversity of our members. We've partnered with Terra and Art Design Chicago, the Chicago Research Summit, the Caxton Club, and the Union League Club of Chicago. The three of us have had a wonderful joint programming this year. The Chicago Area Archivist, Chicago Cultural Alliance, My Block, My Hood, My City, Chicago Public Schools. Kate has been partnering with the National Archival Finding Aid Network. This has all just been amazing and gets us out there. Jeannie Long just spoke to a group at the University of California, Riverside. I mean, we're getting to the West Coast. We have taken it on the road. A lot of virtual presentations this year. ACRL in April, the Midwestern History Conference in May, an ALA on Demand program in June, and an ILA program, which will also be virtual in October. Cooperative Reference Committee continues to field a lot of reference questions from people around the world asking questions about our collections in Chicago in general. This year we had over 250 inquiries with an 8% increase from the last fiscal year. We've been really proud to host member workshops. This is one of the benefits of membership. So Kate Flynn led a Basics of Metadata Analysis and Assessment workshop. Gretchen Neidhart from my own institution held a critical cataloging workshop assessing bias in your metadata. Fall workshops were presented virtually, uploading content to Metadata Hopper, which is the back end of the Explore Chicago Collections portal. And this spring, 3 workshops, general walkthrough of the Metadata Hopper, preparing your content for Metadata Hopper, and one-on-one consultations. The Discovery Committee was very generous in offering their time for you know, basically office hours to come in and talk about Metadata Hopper. We have not let off on our public lectures. We miss seeing people in person, but Zoom has enabled us to have people from around the country and maybe internationally attend our public lectures. So we have had 8 this year. It's been amazing. We had started off the fiscal year with a virtual conversation with Greg Yao, Marcia Walker-McWilliams, and Danny Green. We've really enjoyed our partnership with the Union League Club of Chicago, and Cheryl Ziegler kicked off our first of the fiscal year conversations with Chicago Collections. If you've ever attended those are a great half-hour walkthrough of one-on-one with a member institution. We really got a great benefit from our partnership with the Terra Foundation this year. So we had a couple of different workshops with them and presentations. So the first was Chicago Zine Culture Roundtable. So it was a presentation and a workshop. And then a music poster discussion and workshop. Chicago's independent rock musicians, etc., and posters. Another great public lecture, the Chicago Apartments, A Century and Beyond of Lakefront Luxury from Neil Harris. Again, a partnership with, gosh, 3 of us, Caxton Club, Chicago Art Deco Society, and Chicago Collections Consortium. And another one of our conversations with Chicago Collections. This is a fascinating talk with Don Roberts from the Note of Art Museum, and just seeing all the wonderful things that the Note of Art has. So that was a great conversation last December. And then another conversation, Raquel Flores Clemens, University Archivist and Director of University Archives, Records Management and Special Collections at Chicago State University, with a wonderful program that really talks about Chicago State University's place in its community, as well as its collections. Modern in the Middle, a partnership with Chicago Public Library and the American Institute of Architects, Michelangelo Sabatino and Susan Benjamin. A lot of great photos, actually a lot of them from the Chicago History Museum from a Hedrick Blessing collection, the great architectural photography firm. And this was a fun conversation. Our first partnership with Chicago History Museum, Patrick Reardon talking about the Loop. And it was a great talk where he really praised all the stuff that he could find at Member Library, Chicago Public Library. So it was a wonderful sort of, you know, shout out to librarians and the resources that we have. And then another partnership with Caxton Club and the Union League Club of Chicago, Terry Edelstein, Art Deco from Paris to Chicago. And this was a great, fascinating talk about the connections between Paris and Chicago and the Art Deco movement. One of our things that we were proud to launch this year was a Chicago Collections member digital resource page. We all pivoted, as you know, to what can we make available digitally. And so one of the things that CCC was able to do was to collect those in one page. So from our variety of member institutions, we pulled together this page that highlights what all those member institutions did digitally this very challenging year. We've got some great new subject guides this year, our community areas and neighborhoods and medical history. So these are wonderful guides that get you into various histories of Chicago in various aspects, and the things that you can learn about them in member institutions. The purpose is, not only to educate you about these topics, but to highlight what you can find in member institutions. It was a great year for our digital exhibits. This received a lot of, this is sort of the gift that keeps on giving. We had the 1963 Chicago Public Schools boycott. That was released October of 2020 in partnership with Media Burn, Cartemquin, headed up by our great digital exhibits committee. This is just, the resources in this digital exhibit are just fascinating. And for researchers who have emailed us, documentary filmmakers have been especially busy the pandemic year. And I know at Chicago History Museum, we fielded a lot of emails from them. Anything about education in this, I sent them to the digital exhibit. Explore Chicago Collections continues to be our showcase. So we've got some first-time contributors in Explore. We've got Wilmette Historical Museum and the Ukrainian National Museum. I love finding new things in Explore. With some wonderful stats, you can see that we just continue to have high numbers for both sessions and for users. So we were at 115,000 sessions and 95,000 plus users this last fiscal year. Continuing our work with Chicago Chicago Cultural Alliance, we have stories of immigration and migration, and we're adding the Bronzeville Historical Society, the Latvian Folk Art Museum, the National Cambodian Heritage and Killing Fields Memorial, and the Ukrainian National Museum. Those will be coming soon. So 2021-22, what is next? We are continuing to work on our strategic plan. We'll be assembling a strategic plan committee to take us to 2022 and beyond. You can see that our organizational goals for the last few years have been enhanced public access to rich Chicago-focused collections, foster an engaged community through programming, and build a strong, involved membership, and sustain an effective, efficient organization. Jeannie Long has done that this year. So coming up, continued implementation of our plan and its evaluation process, supporting our members, expanding membership, planning for our anniversary. 2022 means we're 10 years old, continuing joint sponsorship of member programs, offerings of professional development workshops, and continuing efforts in digital exhibitions. We've got some great upcoming virtual public programs. So Joseph D. Kearney and Thomas W. Merrill on Lakefront, Public Trust and Private Rights in Chicago, in partnership with the Caxton Club and Union League Club of Chicago. Conversations with Chicago Collections. Our next one is the Chicago Cubs, one of our newest memberships. Very excited to have Ida B. Wells' great-granddaughter with August 4th in partnership with one of our newest members, the Bronzeville Historical Society. 10 years in 2022. This is very exciting. We are always looking for participants. Join a committee or task force, our programming committee, our membership committee, communications, content committee, cooperative reference network, and our development committee. And share us with friends on social media. I want to give a particular shout out to Rachel Cole at Northwestern University's Transportation Library. She has launched, and this year she launched our Facebook page and our Instagram account, and those have had fabulous engagement. So if you are not following us on Facebook and Instagram, follow us there, as well as our Twitter feed. I had questions that we can't take over chat. Yay! Sorry, I'm a fast talker, so I've left us with a little time to spare. And I can't take any questions. But I really thank you all for attending. Vashon was the showcase for this. That's why I sort of sped through. I wanted to make sure he had enough time. and follow him on social media. That's where I started following him there. And that's, you know, when Charles told me he was donating and that I would love his metadata, I did say, I already do follow him and I do love him. So I was thrilled to have him speak today. So thank you all so much for attending. And again, many, many thanks to all of our committee members, all of our board members, all of our member institutions, Kate Flynn, who does a yeoman's work with a part-time position, Jeannie Long, who has been working around the clock. I mean, she has to take some vacation time because she's been working around the clock. And I just, Jeannie, you've got to come back online so we can virtually thank you and thank your face. I mean, this has been a challenging year. If anyone who has been, you know, at any of our member institutions or if you're coming from any organization, you know how tough this year was. Jeannie just stuck to it. She fundraised like the devil and got new members. I am just in awe of her. So thank you, Jeannie.
And Ellen, thank you. And to be able to share this moment and also the hope that Vashon brought all of us. So we're really pleased to be able to start the new year, you know, after today. So thank you to all the members and all the support that we've gotten from your leadership and the boards as well. So.
And again, our apologies for the chat not working. I'm so sorry, but we're really easy to find.
Yeah.
We really are. So please follow up with any questions that you have. We so appreciate your attendance. So thank you all, and maybe next year in person?
Here's hoping.
All right.